A portfolio is a curated set of images designed to showcase your experience and your abilities as a photographer. The goal of a portfolio is twofold. First of all, you're trying to get a client. You need to show your clients you're capable of completing the assignment they have in mind. The ugly truth about photography is that nobody hires you to photograph a job unless they know you can do it. Food photographers don't get hired to shoot weddings. Sports photographers don't get hired to shoot fashion. For better or worse, photography is a meritocracy. Experience is everything, and your portfolio is proof of that experience. The second reason is to get a staff job. You need to show that you're a good fit for an organization and that you're capable of doing exactly what they need, but also that you bring something new or different to the table. You have to prove you're not just a one-trick pony. Staff jobs usually prefer photographers with a greater range of skills, someone who can learn new things and adapt to changing styles and needs. Again, nobody cares where you went to school or even if you have a degree in photography. All they care about is, can you do the job? My wife teaches a Sunday school class at our church, and this is my favorite lesson that she's ever taught. She makes this amazing chocolate cake, and it looks way better than this one, which is just a stunt cake from Sam's Club. Anyway, she brings the cake to the front of the class and sets it on a desk so that when people walk into the classroom, it's the first thing they see. And at 11 a.m. on a Sunday morning, the promise of cake is worth rejoicing over. Once she begins the lesson, she explains that this is a family recipe that she made, and she wanted to share it with the class. Then she asked who would like to try it. And of course, on the front row, somebody immediately raised their hands. So my wife just grabs a piece of cake, slaps it on the plate, and said, "Here you go." You could imagine the reaction from the entire class. Utter shock and dismay. After waiting for the commotion to settle down, my wife turned back to the class and said these two words: "Presentation matters." Now the cake on that plate still tasted the same. Nothing really changed about it except for maybe its shape. But the truth is that the way you present something affects how it will be received. As someone who hires a ton of photographers, I see lots of portfolios, and that means that each portfolio gets a very brief review. It's those first impressions that I get from a portfolio that stay with me. Those first impressions largely determine who will be considered for an interview. I've reached out to dozens of photographers that have both a lot of experience in reviewing portfolios and hiring photographers. And I've asked them if they'd share with me their tips on the things that you should do, and maybe more importantly, the things that you shouldn't do when building your portfolio. So let's dive in. The first thing you need to do is pull together a group of images that will make up your portfolio. Try to choose images that represent you as a photographer, the images that you'd love to make. But make sure that there's lots of variety in those images and you have photos that are going to display your diverse range of skills. Try also to have a mixture of posed versus unposed, lit versus natural light, on location versus studio. I would suggest you lean more towards your most recent images from the past few years, but if you have a really amazing older image that stacks up, throw it in the mix. Don't be afraid to choose more images than you're actually going to need, because we're going to narrow it down to the best ones later. As you're building your portfolio, you might find some holes. It might be because your photos in that area are dated, or you just don't have much experience with a certain type of photography. Don't try to hide it, do something about it. Set up some personal shoots and create images specifically made for your portfolio. Not only will it help you fill those holes, it will give you experience which you can draw upon to level up your photography. Once others see those new images in your portfolio, they'll start hiring you to create those images for their own companies. Building a portfolio means that you need to go create photos that you want to be paid to shoot. Sometimes you need to make images only for your portfolio, not for a paying client. In preparing the JPEGs for your portfolio, you're going to want to make sure that they are all edited to perfection. Portfolio reviewers are not only judging your photos, but also your skills and the way that you finish your images. Take your time on the edit and make sure there are no flaws. Make sure everything's cropped perfectly, toned, sharpened. Make sure that all of your photos are displayed in the same color profile. And personally, I recommend sRGB. Keep the files large enough so that they can also be displayed comfortably on a full screen. When it comes to deciding which photos are going to be used in your portfolio, be intentional with your choices. Do your research on the targeted client or company that's going to receive the portfolio. Look at their website, social media accounts, ads, brochures, all of it. Choose images that they would want to use in those placements. Show them that you can create the photos that they need, and maybe even elevate their expectations on what is possible. Study the job posting and the job description, and make sure that you're showing them the images that meet those specific requirements. Remember the old adage, don't serve steak to a vegetarian. Catering your portfolio to the client ensures that your portfolio will be seen. Last year, when we opened a position for our full-time photographer in our office, the job description stated that their primary responsibilities would be creating sports action and sports marketing images. I was shocked at how many portfolios that I received didn't have any sports action photos at all. And in fact, very few had both sports action and sports marketing images. It was also pretty obvious that many of the applicants sent us their stock resume and portfolio, the same exact one that they sent to every single job that they applied for. I believe that you should customize a new portfolio for each job that you apply for because each employer is looking for something different and specific. They're looking for someone that specifically fits in with their organization. One of the biggest mistakes photographers make is including too many images in their portfolio. This was the #1 complaint among all the photographers that I surveyed. I've personally seen portfolios with several hundred images. Here's another adage for you to remember. You're only as good as your worst image. Unfortunately, the mediocre images stand out more than the great ones. They bring down your whole portfolio and your brand. Sometimes we love an image because of what it means to us. Maybe it was the first time that we used strobes, or we had a really cool experience with the person we were photographing, or it was a really difficult image to make. Whatever the reason, we have an emotional connection to our photos, and that connection can get in the way of us building a solid portfolio. The person reviewing your portfolio has no such connection to the images. They just don't care. The photos need to be able to stand on their own. For most photographers, this is the hardest part of the process. It's like choosing your favorite child. This would be a good time to ask for help, but don't ask your mom. She's way too nice and thinks every photo you take is great, which they're not. That's the worst type of help you can get. Reach out to photographers that you respect, ones that will be brutally honest with you. Get their feedback and then make a decision on which ones to keep. So how many images should you actually keep in your portfolio? Almost every single photographer I talked to agreed on the same number, 20 photos. 20 photos gives me a good look at your skills and your abilities so that I can form my first impressions of who you are as a photographer. In fact, I'm really impressed if a photographer is confident enough to give me just 15 images, as long as they're all solid images. Just fight the temptation to go over 20. Your goal should be to leave me wanting just a little bit more, which will give me a reason to go onto your website and look at your social media profiles. Remember, your portfolio is the appetizer, not the main course. I also get asked, what do you do about photo essays? Well, personally, I wouldn't put them in your main portfolio. In fact, I'd prefer that you sent me a separate link of the photo essay because I think photo essays should be viewed together as a narrative set. So if I like your portfolio, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at that photo essay, but the portfolio should be your first priority. Once you've whittled it down to the final 20 images, you need to organize them in a way that they're going to be displayed in an order that you determine. I personally organize my photos intentionally by creating visual variety. So every new image that the viewer sees, I want there to be a drastic change in theme, color, and image orientation. I'm very careful about making sure that two similar images are not grouped right next to each other. So here's an example from an old portfolio that I had on my website. This is an example of what not to do. Notice how I have 5 dance images grouped right together in the center of this page? When you go through the images one by one, you have 3 dancers in a row. And worse yet, 2 of those images came from the same photo shoot. Don't ever have multiple images from the same shoot in the same portfolio. It's fine for a photo essay or if you're showing an example of a campaign you shot, but your portfolio needs to be full of unique images. Let's just assume that I've had it with snow and I want to go apply for a job with the Tennessee Titans to be their team photographer. In all reality, I probably shouldn't move to Nashville because the hot chicken would be the end of me. The first thing I'm going to do is check out their website, social media sites, merchandise, and see what photos they are using. I might even call my buddy Donald Page, who's their head photographer, and chat with him about what he's looking for in a photographer. Now, in my research, I found that they have a good mix of lit marketing images in the studio, practice photos, pre-game action, game action, and some unposed lifestyle images. So that gives me a really good idea of what images they'd like to see in a portfolio. So I've pulled together a large collection of my favorite football images over the past 10 years. So I've got about my top 100 images in this folder, and it's all over the place. There's just so many images. Rather than haphazardly deleting images till I'm down to 20, I've actually gone and color tagged each of these images with those categories that it represents. So if we just sort by color class here. So this first group of images is going to be in my marketing images, kind of my posters, those kind of things. The second group is going to be kind of camp, practice photos, scrimmages, that's kind of images is what we're going to worry about there. The third type is kind of pre-game images, and just a variety of images from pre-game, locker room, outside, whatever. The fourth group is going to be my action photos, which is the biggest group. And then the fifth group is kind of post-game celebration type stuff. So now it's a lot easier for me to knock these down because I'm just going to look at each group at a time. Since there's 5 groups, I know I need 4 to 5 images from each of these, and that's it. So we're going to just go through and cycle through these and see which ones I think are going to be the most important to keep. I'm definitely trying to look for some variety and show that I can do lighting, I can do some high-end work, I can do action. I think I definitely am going to have my sugar glass image. I think I also want to have, maybe this studio image, kind of like this outdoor image out on the salt flats, maybe something like this, an illustrative thing. So let's look at those. So that right there is 5 images. The question is do I have enough variety in these images? And maybe the studio images are too similar to each other. So maybe we'll go back and change out one of these. Let's see. And this is the hard part. This is tough. I like all these images. It's not like I don't have an image in here I didn't like. But just to try something different, let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so there's a good mix of variety there. I could also be persuaded to add, maybe this image of standing on the glass is also really good. But that's 6, so we're going to come back to that later. So let's go to the second group of images. Again, this is kind of, this is like fall camp, summer camp, spring ball, all this kind of stuff. So just, again, a variety. I'm going to here's an image I think is different and it stands out. And, there's another one, but do I need 2 images of specialists? I don't know. I probably need one good just camp action, and I'd say that that's probably a really good one right there. And then, again, it gets hard. So the fun image, looking at shoes in the locker room, but again, it doesn't have a lot of value compared to some of these others. I'm going to run through these and see what else I like that stands out. I love this image. But in talking to other photographers, that doesn't really mean a lot to them, so they say leave it out. And then that's an image that also stands out. Again, specialists, I have to be careful of having too many specialists image. So I'm just trying to think what is just kind of some unique looks that are different that stand out. And this is a fun image of Zach Wilson. And that brings up a really good point. A lot of the photographers I talked to mentioned just because you have somebody that's famous, it doesn't mean that their image should be in the portfolio. And a lot of the portfolios that they received, there was a famous person, a president or an actor or whatever. And it felt like the image was thrown in there because the person was famous, but they weren't necessarily the best images. Photographers aren't going to be tricked by that. Your mom will be, but photographers will know, hey, that's not a great image. Even though it is President so-and-so, the image, again, has to stand on its own. So I'm not going to have this image in my portfolio. So right now I'm down to 1, 2, 3. That's a fun detail shot. That's another fun detail shot. I could be persuaded to look at that, and let's just knock out some of these others so I can really get it down and choose. So again, where I have a bunch of images that are similar, like say I have these 3 that are specialist images. So which one is going to stand the most? I'd ask myself, what's one you don't normally see? What's one that's really unique? And I mean, they all have kind of a unique point of view, but I'm probably going to stick with this kicker one. And you could disagree. Heck, in the comments, tell me what you think. So I'm going to get rid of that one. And that's 5. And I'll leave those 5 and we'll come back to make a decision in the final judgment. Okay, let's go back here. Next color. Pre-game. Pre-game's hard because a lot of it does look the same, so I have to look through images and really make a decision on what's going to stand out. So let's just cycle through these really quickly. Okay. And again, I need to remember it can't just be my favorite image, it needs to be something that stands out. So if my first brush, I really like this image. It's always been one of my favorite. I really like this image from Michigan State, but I'm going to actually, this Wisconsin one to me is one that stands out. It's one of my all-time favorite images and kind of shows the work I like to do. So I'm going to leave that one in. I need something of them in a tunnel, And I think tunnel-wise, I'm actually going to go with this just because it's a little bit more branded. I like this black and white a lot, but it doesn't have, as much branding in it. And again, with an NFL team, branding means a lot. So let's see. All right, so we're down to 3 there. So need 2 more. I love this portrait, pregame portrait, so I'm going to throw that in the mix. And then I think a team huddle actually might be really nice, so I'm going to add that one. So that gets us down to 5. Okay. And I'm going pretty quickly through this process. This is mostly for the video. If I'm doing this for real, I'm taking a lot longer time to really deliberate. And again, getting feedback from other people. All right, game action. It's a tough one. There's 31 images in here, but I only have room for 5. And maybe 6 if I feel like game action is more important to the team I'm applying to. Maybe I'm going to add 1 more. So I'll just run through these so you can kind of see them. And again, feel free to just disagree with me in the comments. That's the place to be disagreeable. And some of these I'm looking at them and I'm realizing it's because of the moment. This, for example, was a last-minute catch to win the game, and it means a lot to me. But again, the people looking at the portfolio, they don't care. Is it a good image? Is it technically excellent? Is it a hard image to get? Again, here's Taysom Hill. I love this image. Tells me a lot about who he was when he played for us. But he's a celebrity, and is the image strong enough? If it wasn't Taysom Hill, if it was somebody else, would the image be strong enough to stay in my portfolio? Zach Wilson. Puka Nacua, incredible moment, making a game-winning catch at Boise State. But again, is it technically a good enough photo to make the cut? Coach. Okay, some older ones in there. Luke Staley. So just at my first brush, I'm going to do that, this leap right here. How many is that? That's 3. This is a great kind of celebration shot. I think that's something an NFL team would respond to. And I do like that shot a lot, just with the background. But let's see. So that's 5. I could probably add 1 more and then cut it down. I'll just add that one. I really like that grittiness of that one. Okay. All right, 1 more category to go. This is just kind of post-game, and this is one where I could have maybe 1 less. But obviously, celebration and emotion, it's an important thing. So if I don't have another coach shot, that'd be a good one. Let's run through these real quick. All right. So again, thinking of who I'm applying to, I think a locker room celebration would be great. Maybe an on-the-field celebration, a coach celebration. Actually, I like this one more. I'm going to go with that one. The question is this celebration at a bowl game better than something like that? And it probably is. So I'll add that there. Okay. So now I've taken those 100 images and I'm going to do it by rating. And I'm going to do it only by the 1 stars. So now it's 26 images. So I've taken it down from 100 images down to 26. And now this is where it's going to get a little excruciating. I'm going to keep them by their groupings. I'm just going to run through these and see, and again, ask myself which ones are the worst images, which are the ones that are going to stand out the most and hurt me the most. For image, I like this image just because, again, it's a little bit of a drag image and it shows kind of some technique. I think this is great because it shows a lot of lighting skill in the studio, but maybe the athlete's going to be more important than the helmet. Again, a kind of a marketing shot, another marketing shot. You know, all these are things that I think would work just fine. But I'm going to have to cut one. I think that's different enough, that's different enough. I think I'm going to cut the helmet shot out. And that's hard, but I feel like an in the studio whole body shot is really important to have. So that's really why I made that decision. So let's cut that out. Next set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what I worry about here is you have kind of a similar type shots. On the ground, throwing the ball up and catching the ball. Just they feel similar to me, so I'm going to probably cut one. But I think this action shot is important. I think it's important to show, action in practice and stuff. But I can definitely get rid of one of these 4. I like this because it's a detail shot, and I don't have a ton of detail shots in my portfolio. It's one of my weaknesses is I sometimes just don't get enough details. So. I think because these are kind of feel similar to me, I'm going to cut this one. And there we go. Okay, up next, pregame. This is an image that's always done really well. People love it. Again, this is another image that's one of people's favorites. I'm going to keep that. Same with that. The question is do I need both of these? And I just kind of think like it's cool to have this pregame moment kind of in the blue, but it's also pretty basic. I don't think the skill level is quite as needed to get it. So I think I'm going to cut it. I just like the moment here and the kind of the team camaraderie, and I think that's something that stands out. So I could be wrong. Again, feel free to argue. All right, down to action. Three, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And in just looking at this, I think this one just kind of stands out as like it's a little bit older and maybe not as strong, so I'm going to cut it. And post game, I've got 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And since I have Coach, I don't know, this is a tough one because Coach Satake here is great by himself celebrating. But, this is one of those moments. This is the kind of picture they want to put on their wall in a football team, showing the success. So I could be persuaded, honestly, to keep both. But let's look where I'm at. 22, so I need to cut 2 more. So I think in that instance, this one and this one, they feel similar. So I'm going to cut this one out just because I think that on the field it may be a little bit more usable, a little harder to get. I did suffer for this one, although I shouldn't bring that into it, but I got beat up pretty good with my arms up. Whenever you're shooting one of these post-game celebrations, your ribs get pummeled. But I do, in talking to other photographers, they do like this image a lot. So I'm going to keep it in for now. Okay, and then it comes down to the last image. Which image is the one that's holding me back? And I think to me it's between this one and this one. And I think I'm going to get rid of this one. It's older. Let's see how we're doing. Okay. It was tough, but I got it to 20. And again, normally this is going to take a lot longer than a few minutes to get to those choices, especially when I'm deliberating over some of these images that are similar types. So now what I'm going to want to do is arrange these images in an order that makes sense to me. So I want to have visual variety, thematic differences, different color looks, and different orientation. So what that means to me is I'm going to just go by arrangement. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to choose my top 2 photos, the photos that mean the most to me. And those are going to be my first photo, my opener, and my closer. And my personal opinion is that your opener should be the photo that represents who you are as your brand, right? the photography that you're known for. But then the last image should be the image that just kicks them in the face. That just is so different. It blows them away, and it entices them to go look at your website, to go look at your social profiles, and learn more about who you are. So for me, I already have it here. I love this Wisconsin Images as an opener. I think it's a great, clean image, and I think it's pretty strong. And I think my closer is the sugar glass. Now, the sugar glass is one video. If you want to see how we made it, go check it out on our YouTube channel. It's a lot of fun, but it is an image that always resonates with photographers when I talk about my portfolio. So those are my two. So now between those images, I have to decide the order which these are going to go. And I'm going to make sure, again, I don't want this image with 3 guys walking to be right next to this image with 3 guys walking. I want there to be something completely different. So maybe I'm going to jump to an action shot. Let's say maybe this action shot. So it goes from horizontal to vertical, kind of a different feel. And then maybe I'm going to change it up and go to this kick shot, which is very different. I do need a marketing shot, so we'll do a marketing image here. Nice big color change there. They're both vertical, so maybe I can mix it up a bit. Maybe we can put this in between them. And maybe this could go here. Maybe to mix it up with this. Yeah, that'd be a good place for a celebration. These images are similar, so I got to break them up. So maybe I'll put that action there. Marketing, detail, action, pregame. Let's do a marketing shot there. Celebration, action. Okay, let's look at that. Let's look at how that goes through. And I'm just going to, again, try to put myself in the place of the viewer that's looking at these images. 1, 2, 3, big change. 4, big change. 5 to black studio. 6, celebration. 7, pre. The ball's in a similar place. I don't know if that bothers me or not. To a celebration shot. Back to an action shot. To a marketing shot. Coach celebration. Detail. Action. Pre-game. Marketing. Post-game. So right here I do have a post-game and 2 kind of celebratory pictures right next to each other. So maybe I'll move those up. And then kind of practice image and kind of a pregame celebration and then my closer. Okay. So I didn't love these 2 being next to each other. So I think what I'm going to do is move that to there. And then that kind of, so I do have 2 actions next to each other. And I feel like this needs to be up sooner. So I'm going to move this up maybe to here. And then I'll move this down to there. Although you do have these 2 celebrations pretty close, but there's a celebration there. Where is there not a celebration? Maybe we move one of these up. Yeah. Let's see how that feels now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So those celebrations do feel close to each other because they're a similar type of image. Okay, move that to there and this back down. Yeah, I like that. That's a little different. So that was basically the order that I want things to go in. Now, in order to keep my images where they are, I'm just going to go select all and I'm going to rename the photos. And I'm going to change this variable so it's file name base, so it keeps the original file name. Because they may want to see, where the game was shot at or whatever. And then I'm just going to add a sequence here at the beginning and start at 01. Then when I hit OK and rename it, those images are now in that order. Okay, so now that I've renamed it, those images are now going to appear in that order. Now that you have the order down and the final 20 images down, share it again with other photographers. Get feedback from them. See what they say. Ask them this question: what's your worst photo? What's the one that stands out to them that shouldn't be there? And then consider cutting it or exchanging it out with another one of your finalist photos. The final piece of the puzzle is, how do you showcase the photo? Many of the job applications that I receive are going to include a portfolio as an attachment to an email, or a PDF, or a Dropbox link, or somebody's Instagram profile, or their Facebook gallery, or even their full website. This is another one of the pet peeves that came from the group of photographers. They don't want any of that. All they want is a clickable link, one that takes them directly to a gallery that displays the portfolio with big high-res images. Preferably, you need to have the option of going full screen with those images. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it should be clean and professional. Don't get me wrong, your website and your social media profiles are important tools in your business, but you don't have control over which of your images I'm going to see and in what order I'm going to look at them. It also forces me to do the work of hunting through your website to find the answers I'm looking for. And most hiring managers, they're just not going to do it. They're going to move on to the next application. You want to be in complete control of this first impression. If I like what I see in your portfolio, I will go look at your website and your social media profiles because I'm interested and I want to know more about you. So you can make a custom gallery on your website that isn't public and just send them that link. I personally use PhotoShelter for my gallery, and here's what it looks like. Again, this is really basic, but I can send this link to a client and they're going to see all the images pop up. They're going to be able to click and go one by one. If I want, I can have a caption here on the bottom. It's up to how you want to do it. But again, this is just the PhotoShelter basic site, and you can customize it any way you want. For $10 a month, this is a pretty basic site, but it does the job. I also love using exposure galleries, and I can show you what that looks like. All right, so on my exposure site, I'm just going to start a story. And what I love about this site, it's really easy because you just kind of drag and drop everything. So I'm going to drag the first photo over, and I'm going to put my name, spell it right. And then you can upload in groups. So I'm just going to do like a group of 6, do a photo set. And again, you can kind of change how these are displayed. So maybe I'm going to want this one to go full width. And then those are together, and that's there. And then I'll do another group. And here, I really want this one to be full width. And maybe this one. Do another set. And then for my final image, my closer, I'm going to have it be full width in the screen. And then you can rearrange in here. You can choose which ones to go full or smaller, or make groups, or make some full width. The other cool thing is let me just show you kind of what a preview would look like for the client. They would see that, and then they could actually click and go one by one through the images. So Exposure is a pretty cool site, so go ahead and check that out. But again, you have lots of options. In fact, there's even some free options like Wix. There's also SmugMug. There's Squarespace. There's lots of sites that you can use to build a very simple portfolio. So here's another good option for you to take a look at. It's called Adobe Portfolio, and it's free if you have a Creative Cloud account. Took me about 5 minutes to make this page. Very simple gallery. They have some templates that you can use, and you can see everything in the grid in the order that I want them, or we can click on them and we can go through them one by one. So check it out. It's something that might work really well for you. One of the cool things about this site is you can actually preview how it will appear on different screens, like a tablet or a phone, and kind of get the full experience of what somebody would be looking at if they were to use one of those devices. But as far as I can tell, this is pretty customizable as far as the layout and the way you want things, but everything's kind of included. So check out Portfolio. This is probably a good time to mention that your portfolio is never done. It's always evolving. Create different portfolios for each job that you apply for, or keep updating those website galleries. Keep getting feedback from other photographers and find ways to make your portfolio better. That's it. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you on the sidelines.